about 3 hours before the race start, and that I can be done eating basically 2 hours before the race start. So the first thing that I have is a banana, and then I mix up a Ultragen shake, which was a new addition. That was one of the very few things that I changed. I started doing that at last year's Ironman, and that's the change from the first 2 Ironmans that I did to the last 3. I've now used the shake for the past 3. I have a little bit of Trader Joe's dark chocolate, and I basically have one big bowl of that, and then I take my vitamins and my Optogen, which is how I take it pretty much every morning. And then I finished off with EFS bar, which is new for probably the last half of this season. EFS plus some extra electrolytes, and then I have the same between the aero bars. And so that's what I start the ride with, and it's about, I guess if I do it out, I think it's about 1,200 or 1,100 of my own calories on the bike, and I shoot to take about 400 to 450 an hour, kind of depending on weather and how I'm feeling and all that kind of stuff. If it's a course where you can really stay on the power, I think you're probably burning a bit more calories, so I probably would take in more. Whereas a course like this, I think you're more erratic because there's a lot of times where you can't pedal because you have to go around folks on the second and third lap. So here I think I ended up taking about 1,700 calories. I had most of my calories that I started the ride with, I think 1,100 of them, and then 3.5 bottles of Gatorade. So I think that's basically pretty close to 1,700 calories. With, pump the tires, get everything ready like that, put my spares stuff on. Like, I don't think anyone messes with your bike, but I always put my spares on the morning of. I put my bottles on the morning of. I don't leave anything on the bike that someone could really tamper with. So once that's all set, then I sort of go for a quick jog, hopefully find some of the secret porta-johns that you learn after doing a race 3 times, and then I come back, and that's pretty much it for getting everything ready. So then about 20 to 30 minutes, I'll take 1 scoop of pre-race in a little bit of EFS drink, and that's the last. I used to take it about 50 minutes before, but then my coach said, maybe try it so that it hits you later in the swim, and I think it's nice because right about that time you hit the turnaround in the swim. Like, you get all that adrenaline early in the swim, so this way I get a little bit of that caffeine boost for the back half of the swim. And headed out on the bike, and just at the start I try not to go crazy about sort of sticking to wattage, but I try to just sort of keep it within a range. You always feel good, and I sort of run with that a little bit. You get into your shoes and you kind of get the legs pumping, and it feels good to not be using your arms. It's like, it seems that the distances are always, if you pace it right, it's like just about the time the swim is over, you're ready to stop swimming, and then you start biking, and then about the time you're ready to stop biking, it's time to start running. So it seems to work out okay. I got out onto the highway, sort of the more exposed sections, and I felt some wind, but not too much until I actually turned on the beeline, which is like the main sort of drag section. It's sort of the long false flat uphill, and then the sort of slight downhill coming back in. And there was quite a strong headwind, so I sort of really tucked down in and pulled my head down. And I could see flashing lights up the road, but I thought it was probably just race general support. And then as I got closer, I could see that the clock on top of the car behind that, and I was like, wow, that's the lead. That's not all that far away. Normally, it's like, the only time I've come off the bike and lead was in Canada, and I got there like right near the end of the bike, and here I was thinking, wow, instead of getting a lead with 15, 16 miles to go, I'm going to get it maybe 15, 16 miles in. I thought that's pretty cool. Like, it's nice to race from the front. There's a helicopter out there. It's always kind of fun to chase the helicopter, right? So I pushed it a little bit more than what I knew I was shooting to hold for the ride, but you kind of have to do that on this course since later on you only get 1 lap of sort of clean roads. So I always have pushed that pace a little bit more, just because it's the only time you really can just focus on riding hard and not worry about crashing into someone or having someone crash into you or any of that kind of stuff. So right before the turnaround, which is about 18 miles in, I guess I came across there was a long line of guys spaced out at about whatever the legal line, so 10 meters or so between riders. And I thought, well, those guys are having it pretty convenient. I wonder what they'll think when I just ride right through all of them. And that's what I did, and I think it shook things up a little bit, which was sort of what I intended. The first 2 laps were good, but the wind, it definitely started to pick up. And on that last lap, I was tired. The first 2 laps, I think I was probably within about 15 or 20 seconds of each other in terms of how fast I was going. I actually thought I was going to break 4:20. I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. But I guess maybe I sort of jinxed myself at the press conference. Said, how fast are you going to ride? And I said 4:22. I think I ended up riding like 4:22:30 because I gave quite a bit back from the pace I was riding on that last lap. I just, when I would pass someone and then I would get stuck, I couldn't bring that same level of power to bear. My legs started to hurt, and I think it's, we're 11 months into the season. I started training, I think, on like the 3rd of January, so I think there's just some cumulative fatigue, and I think there's also just that taxing of, you stop and then you start and you never get into that same rhythm that you have after the first lap. And I broke my own bike course record riding a 4:22, breaking my course record from last November, which was 4:26:20. So that was pretty exciting on a new bike, so it was a good way to start off on a relationship with a new company there. So thanks to Specialized for that, and then it was off on the run, and I run with a Garmin, and I think it's just it's sort of, for me, pace has been the equivalent of power, and just it keeps you from running too fast early on. It keeps you from slowing down too much late in the day. We've now transitioned onto the run. So I start the run with 26 salt stick caps and a flask of EFS liquid shot, and that is sort of what I bring, and then I expect to have a cup of Gatorade and a cup of Coke at every aid station. And I hit every single aid station. I do not want to be the Julie Moss crawling across the finish line. So even like the very last one, at whatever it is, I guess like mile 25 and a half, I get a Coke and a Gatorade at that aid station. So that's sort of the plan there. Actually, I took out my EFS flask and I got about a little bit, and then I just sort of was like tucking it back in, and I dropped it, and it goes like skirting off, and I'm like, oh great. But the last thing never stop running in an Ironman. Like, as soon as you stop once, and that's at the finish line, because once you stop, you're not going to start again. It's like your legs just seize. So I was like, okay, it's done. I knew I had special needs, but the course is a bit of a figure 8, so I was like, okay, I dropped it. When can I get special needs? And then I thought, okay, well, I'll get it the next time around. But then I ended up miscalculating, and then by the time I eventually passed it, I had sort of got to that point. So I ended up grabbing 2 gels on the course, and I'm always nervous because I like EFS liquid shot, because it has no gelling agent, so it doesn't sit like a gel. Like, you come into the chute, and then at that point I was like, okay, here, take off the sunglasses and high five everybody, because it's pretty awesome. And then I looked at the clock, and it's like, on the one hand, I'm like, this is awesome, I want to celebrate, I want to do the high fives. But then I saw I was like, wow, I could break 8:14, and I was pretty sure that the course record was about that. And I was like, I'll cross the finish line, and then I'll come back out, and we'll high five some more. So I did that, and I was like, okay, I got this in. And I think I finished in 8:13:40, 35 maybe, which I found out later was a new course record by about 40 seconds. So that was pretty exciting. So I'm glad that I didn't, whoop it up too much out there in the finishing chute. So then I sat down, and that's always the worst, because then you have to stand up at some point again. And they bring you back out and do a little bit of interviews. And then first time ever for me, and I think sort of a new trend. US ADA was there for drug testing, so I went and I had to pee and fill out all the forms, and you have to say what supplements have you taken? And I said, well, I work at this company, First Endurance. I take pretty much everything they make. And he's like, well, what do they make? And so I'm explaining all this stuff, and he's like writing it down. He's like, this.